Welcome back, everyone. I am so incredibly excited to have you here today for the combustion of data, because honestly, we're tackling one of the most absolutely crucial transformations any organization can make. We're looking at the TIO framework, specifically Domain 2, which is the data domain. But listen, we aren't just talking about collecting data. We're zoning in on Capability 5, Insight. This is all about how you take that passive, just sitting there data and transform it into a highly active, totally unavoidable business engine. So if you've ever felt like your organization is data-rich but kind of action-poor, well, you are in the exact right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our logical blueprint for today. 1. The combustion of data. 2. Eliminating organizational turf wars. 3. The 3 evidence gates. 4. Measuring insight maturity. And 5. Your first moves. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The combustion of data.
Let's kick things off with a pretty startling reality. Most organizations today are literally drowning in data, yet they are absolutely starved for actual, actionable insight. You know the drill, endless dashboards, massive data lakes, daily reports. But when it comes down to making a really critical business decision, leaders are still just relying on their gut. I want you to read this quote and really let it sink in. Insight is not a serendipitous event. It is a highly engineered system that forces the truth onto the executive table. I mean, wow. That powerful idea completely shatters the illusion that simply having a ton of data makes you data-driven. Insight doesn't just magically happen because you bought some fancy software tool. It has to be engineered. It's a deliberate mechanism designed so that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, literally cannot be ignored by leadership.
And that brings us to the canonical definition of insight within the TIO framework. Insight is defined as the organization's ability to turn trusted data into useful analysis, reporting, and recommendations that improve decisions and action. Notice the emphasis there on decisions and action. This is Capability 5, the absolute apex of the data domain. This is the exact precise point where information finally stops just being stored in some database somewhere and actually starts directing the enterprise.
And this brilliantly illustrates the mechanics of how this all works. Think of insight like an engine. You can't have a working engine without 3 core things, right? Fuel, a mechanism, and an output. The fuel is your trusted, governed, quality-checked data. I mean, you definitely can't run a high-performance engine on contaminated fuel. Next up, the mechanism. That's your useful analysis, your defined metrics, and your AI-supported reporting. That is what actively processes the fuel. And finally, the output, which is the whole point of this. Faster, safer, and more accurate enterprise decisions. Without that concrete output, the engine is honestly just making noise.
That is exactly why we call insight the ultimate combustion of data. I absolutely love this visual because it brings such a visceral, real energy to the concept. Combustion is that exact precise moment when latent fuel ignites to create forward momentum. Think about it. Before this point, data is just a potential energy source. It's just sitting there, literally costing you money to store. But through the insight capability, that raw data combusts into true business value. It creates motion. It forces action.
Moving right along to Section 2, eliminating organizational turf wars.
Now, creating that kind of momentum sounds amazing, but in reality, it often crashes headfirst into internal politics. Intelligent organizations prevent this kind of confusion and systemic paralysis by drawing absolute physical boundaries between their departments and capabilities. To stop executives from, stepping all over each other's toes, we use this absolutely critical rule of 3. It establishes specific, non-negotiable guardrails. Number 1, insight informs decisions. Number 2, strategy chooses what matters. And number 3, measurement proves whether value was actually created. When you blur these lines, you get total chaos. When you define them strictly, you get execution.
Notice the 3 distinct pillars here. Over on the left, we've got strategy. That belongs firmly in the leadership domain. Strategy's job is to set the enterprise choice set. Basically, where are we going and what are we going to fund? Right in the middle, we have insight, belonging to the data domain. Insight's job is to answer, what is the data telling us we need to do right now? And then over on the right, we have measurement, which belongs to the factory domain. Measurement looks backward and answers, did the change actually work? Did it deliver ROI? So insight doesn't choose the strategy, and it certainly doesn't prove the final value. It exists specifically to inform the active, real-time decisions happening right in between.
All right, Section 3, the 3 evidence gates.
Having a boundary line is great in theory, sure, but how do you actually know if you have a real insight capability in practice? We need to transition from just the theory of boundaries into the hard, undeniable proof required to verify that this capability actually exists in your organization. We do this through executive evidence.
So, the crucial point here is that to prove your insight capability isn't just a pipe dream, you have to produce concrete artifacts. You literally need to unlock these 3 specific evidence gates. Gate 1 is active use. Your priority dashboards absolutely must drive real, documented decisions. Gate 2 is defined rules. Your metrics have to mean the exact same thing across the entire enterprise, no debating the math. And Gate 3 is embedded AI. Analytics and algorithms must natively support your priority business forecasting and workflows.
I want you to kind of picture an insight evidence vault in your head. It has 3 heavy, locked doors. Without unlocking all 3 of these specific gates with concrete physical proof, your insight capability is functionally locked away. It is categorized as absent. Like the framework says, if you cannot produce physical artifacts proving these 3 gates exist, you don't actually have an insight capability, you just have a really big IT expense.
Now, what's really interesting here is the sharp contrast between the noise we tolerate and the insight we actually need. Take a look at the red box. This is what most companies unfortunately have. Something like 500 legacy dashboards running in Tableau or Power BI that literally nobody has logged into for 90 days. Guys, that is just noise. It's expensive noise. Now look at the green box. True insight means your core leadership operating rhythms are run directly from live, actively used dashboards. It means your meeting minutes explicitly log the actions taken because of the data on that dashboard. That is the massive difference between just having software and having an actual capability.
Let's move to Section 4, Measuring Insight Maturity.
Okay, so once you understand the evidence gates, the next logical step is figuring out exactly where your organization currently stands. We use this scale to honestly evaluate the transition from relying on, gut feelings all the way to operating on automated workflows. This is the Insight Maturity Scale, and it's scored from 0 to 5. Level 0 is absent, meaning decisions rely entirely on gut feel because the data is completely untrusted. Level 1 is ad hoc. This is where you see those heroic individual efforts, people building scattered spreadsheets at 2 a.m. just to get a single report out the door. Level 2 gets you to repeatable, but the metrics are still heavily disputed. Level 3 is defined, where you finally have a single source of truth that's actually used in operational meetings. Level 4 is managed, where AI models run on clean data to proactively predict outcomes. And finally, Level 5 is optimized. That's the gold standard, where AI-supported insights are natively embedded into automated workflows, allowing the whole organization to adapt to data signals in real time. So, asking yourself honestly, where do you think your organization falls on these steps?
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Your First Moves. Understanding the framework and your maturity level is fantastic, but honestly, it means nothing without execution. It's time to take immediate action, transitioning from just understanding these concepts to actively applying them in your business tomorrow morning. So if you want to move from a nice aspiration to an engineered reality, here is your ultimate authoritative playbook. First, audit your top 5 executive dashboards. If they haven't driven a documented decision in the last 90 days, kill them. Just turn them off and see who screams. Seriously. Second, force your business leaders to agree on the exact mathematical rules for your top 3 most critical KPIs. Stop the endless arguments about whose numbers are right. Just stop it. And third, stop asking your data teams what happened last quarter. You need to start demanding algorithms that predict what will break next week. It's all about shifting from historical reporting to predictive foresight.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a hard look at the systems you pay for, the dashboards you maintain, and the endless meetings you sit in. Ask yourself honestly, do you have a highly engineered insight capability that forces truth onto the table and sparks unavoidable action? Or do you just have a very expensive, very shiny IT expense? It's a tough question, for sure, but answering it is the absolute first step toward building a truly intelligent organization. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I literally cannot wait to see how you put these insights into action